Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today it is the Week 5 preview. Steelers versus Cowboys, Sunday Night Football, in what feels like a very pivotal game for the Pittsburgh Steelers here in the 2024 campaign. Can't wait to break it all down with you guys. Score prediction at the end, Dak Prescott scouting report, keys to victory, all that great stuff is coming your way here over the next 15 minutes or so. But before we get into the content today, make sure you guys click that subscribe button to watch our live watch parties every single week here during the 2024 NFL season for your Pittsburgh Steelers. We have easily over 50,000 people that watch our live shows every single week. If you want to join the largest Steelers live community to watch Steelers games with an international community of Yinzers that bleed black and gold, this is going to be the place for you. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button right now and join us for this week's watch party where we go live 7 p.m. Eastern time for Sunday Night Football between the Cowboys and Steelers. All right, man, let's talk about this one here because the 3-1 Steelers at home going up against a struggling Cowboys team. Now, the Cowboys did beat the Giants last week, but they only beat them by 5 points. I think we all know how bad the New York Football Giants are at this point. Take a look at what the Cowboys have done to this point in their season. They beat the Browns, and, they got 33 points in that game, so it was a good start for them. But then they had 2 straight home games against the Saints and Ravens, 2 good teams, but, they got absolutely killed. That 28-25 finish against the Ravens, don't kid yourself. The Ravens absolutely killed them in that football game. And then just last week, they almost let the Giants beat them. Now they were on the road, a division game, all that stuff. But the Cowboys have definitely had 3 kind of rough performances in a row heading into this Week 5 matchup against the Steelers. Here's what you're going to expect from these guys schematically. They got Mike McCarthy as their head coach, who's 44-27 as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. A pretty darn good record. Then you look at the offensive scheme. Mike McCarthy comes from kind of like the second generation of the West Coast, kind of like Mike Shanahan kind of. But he's kind of evolved his scheme a little bit to involve more spread concepts. So he runs a bit of a hybrid style of offense. He really likes pivot routes, turnaround routes, all this stuff close to the line of scrimmage. So watch out for those kinds of routes on Sunday night. But then the defense, brand new defensive scheme with Mike Zimmer coming in, running his 4-2 balance scheme, double mug looks on third downs, all these different things. It hasn't really been good to this point for the Dallas Cowboys defense, if we're being honest with you. But Mike Zimmer is somebody that's been in this league a very, very long time and has been calling plays on that side of the ball for a very long time. So some key injuries here, and this is a very big storyline for this football game. Arguably the 2 best defensive players on the Cowboys roster, Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, their edge rushers, are both going to be out for this football game. Parsons with an ankle. DeMarcus is going to be out with a foot. Then you also have one of your starting corners in Deron Bland, who is out with a foot. Brandon Cooks, a wide receiver, is going to be out with a knee. And then another corner, a rookie, Kalen Carson out of Wake Forest, is also questionable this week. So this is definitely starting to pile up for the Dallas Cowboys, and the impact players that won't be on the field on Sunday definitely give the Steelers an advantage. Now let's shift to the Cowboys offense here and the key offensive pieces that you need to know. Dak Prescott, of course, we'll get into his scouting report later in today's show. CeeDee Lamb, arguably the best receiver in the National Football League. I mean, he is absolutely stellar, man. We'll talk about him as well. Jalen Tolbert is a younger, kind of bigger target for Dak to throw to. Without Brandon Cooks on the field, Tolbert will be the number 2 receiver for them. Then Jake Ferguson, their tight end, is pretty darn good as well. So you take a look at their team trends. Cowboys offense versus Steelers defense, this particular matchup, all right? The Cowboys offense has been fine. It's been kind of middle of the pack in all these different categories here. Points per game, yards per play, third down percentage, red zone, and touchdown percentage. But the Steelers defense is ranking above them in every single category except for turnovers at this point. So this is definitely a matchup, I believe, that still favors the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially when you look at the trends. But then you shift over to the other side of the ball here for the defense here. Key defensive pieces with Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence out. Trayvon Diggs is their number 1 corner, but he can be baited quite a bit. Watch out for him to get maybe some interceptions here, make some big splash plays, but also for him to make some big-time mistakes and allow George Pickens to get open down the field for potential big play touchdowns. Marshawn Nealon, a rookie edge rusher, is going to be tasked with being their number 1 guy this week. Mozzie Smith is a nose tackle out of Michigan that they drafted 2 years ago. Has had a slow start to his season, but very talented. Then Malik Hooker is a good free safety. But the fact that we put Malik Hooker on this graphic tells you just how little talent this Dallas Cowboys defense will have to work with on Sunday. Then we get to the team trends here for the other side of the ball here, Steelers offense versus the Cowboys defense. Cowboys defense, as you guys can see here, not very good. 27th in points per game allowed, 25th in yards per play allowed. The red zone defense has been awful, and the rushing defense has been really bad. So even though the Steelers offense hasn't been fantastic, they haven't really turned the ball over, and they've done a good job on third downs, but everything else, it's been a little bit of a slow start, below league average in all those top categories. But as bad as the Steelers offense has been, or at least as below average as the Steelers offense has been, the Cowboys defense has been even worse. So I once again expect this matchup to be won by the Pittsburgh Steelers, at least on paper. So what to expect here from the Dallas Cowboys is a very depleted roster that is definitely desperate for a bounce-back performance. Now, yes, they won last week, but I guarantee you that 5-point win against the New York Football Giants didn't feel very good to them, all right? It was nice to get into the win column, but they're definitely feeling the pressure to live up to their Super Bowl expectations. To this point, they have not done that, so it's going to be interesting to see if they rise to the occasion at Acrisure Stadium on Sunday. So still to come here on Steelers Talk in this Week 5 preview. Keys to victory versus the Cowboys. Got 6 of them to share with you guys here on the show. Dak Prescott scouting report. Going to let you know what I think about the Cowboys signal caller. And then my official Week 5 score prediction will be at the end of today's show. So make sure you guys stick around to the very end. But before we get into the rest of this week's preview, go ahead and check out our friends at Fanatics, where they currently have a great price on brand new Justin Fields Steelers jerseys. So if you want to get a brand new, officially licensed number 2 Justin Fields Steelers jersey, you can get it in your closet today for a great price when you go to chatsports.com/Fields. They've got some really great stuff on their website. It's not just jerseys too, guys. It's other memorabilia. It's hats, it's T-shirts, it's a bunch of great stuff. So listen, man, if you don't have a Justin Fields jersey yet and you believe that he is the future QB1 of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think this is one you have to add to your collection. You can get it at a great price from our friends at Fanatics right now when you go to chatsports.com/Fields. So let's get into our keys to victory here. First one is to get after Dak Prescott. Now, last week, the Steelers pass rush got stymied a little bit against a really good Colts offensive line. So I'm going to tip my cap here to the Colts offensive line for stopping the Steelers pass rush, but I don't think there's many of those kinds of offensive lines in the league that can stop the Steelers pass rush. I don't expect the Cowboys offensive line to be that. Now, you take a look at Dak Prescott here and what he does well versus what he doesn't do well. The general impression that I get from Dak is he does a lot of stuff good, but he doesn't do a lot of stuff at an elite level, all right? I think the only true con is that he's not the best in terms of feeling pressure in the pocket. He's okay at it, but the definite pros here are mental processing and decision-making. He's usually one of the more accurate quarterbacks in the league, but this year the accuracy is kind of dipped for Dak, if I'm being honest, and he is a plus athlete, but he's not a dynamic rusher of the football or anything. He's got a good arm. He doesn't have a great arm, but it really is the mental processing, decision-making, knowing where to go with the football, which makes Dak Prescott a borderline top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. They take a look at the offensive line here for Dallas. They got 2 rookies on this offensive line, Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe, both of which are kind of struggling to start their NFL careers. They're in the 50s in Pro Football Focus grading. But really everybody else on this offensive line is pretty solid. Tyler Smith and Zach Martin, their guards are really good. Terrence Steele is okay, but is he really going to be able to hold up against TJ Watt? I'm not too sure, but the matchup that I'm going to be really keeping my eye on here is that rookie left tackle Tyler Guyton. He's super raw coming out of Oklahoma this year, and he's going to be going up against that awesome speed of Nick Herbig on the edge. And I think a big key to victory is going to be Nick Herbig doing his thing, all right? Because we know TJ Watt is going to do what he does, all right? He's going to dominate the football game. But I think what could be a big X factor here is if Nick Herbig is able to come in with some big plays. You take a look at his stats so far this season, it's been pretty darn good as that for the first couple of weeks as that third edge rusher, and now coming in the stead of Alex Highsmith, who's dealing with an injury right now. He's actually been pretty darn good. So I'm really excited to see this matchup between a really good young edge rusher versus a rookie offensive tackle. I think this is a matchup that they can exploit, and the Steelers can have big success in. Hopefully, I'm hoping that Nick Herbig can get a forced fumble here on a strip sack. Then we get to CeeDee Lamb here, and you got to know where this guy is on the field at all times because he is so freaking good. The Steelers need to double-team him at certain times here, but I also think that Joey Porter Jr. is up to the task of going on an island here and taking him on one-on-one. If he can shut down CeeDee Lamb, The Steelers are going to win this in a landslide, plain simply. The Cowboys' offense at this point, because they don't have Tony Pollard anymore, and they're depending on Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott to be the rushing offense here. They need CeeDee Lamb to be a really big impact every single week, or they will not win. So if Joey Porter Jr. can even slow down CeeDee Lamb a little bit, and I think he will, I think that this is going to be a long day offensively for the Dallas Cowboys offense. So before we get into my offensive keys to victory here, like the video if you want the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this week on Sunday Night Football and improve to 4-1. We're going to see how many Dallas Cowboys fans are watching this video. We can see everybody that doesn't like the video. We're going to start calling some people out next week on Steelers Talk. Okay, now let's get into the run game here, which I think is going to be very, very important for the Pittsburgh Steelers this week, all right? Because you're going up against a team in the Dallas Cowboys that's just really struggling against the run, okay? And right now you are dealing with Jaylen Warren and Cordero Patterson, who are questionable to play at this point. By the time this video comes out, we might have more information on whether Jaylen or Cordero will play. But if both of them are out, this is going to be Najee Harris's time. This is going to be his big game because he's going up against a bad rushing defense in the Dallas Cowboys. And he's going to be the bell cow for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, if Warren plays, if Patterson plays, I still think Najee is still going to be that number one back who gets most of the carries, and Warren and Patterson will be somewhat limited in this one. But at the end of the day, no matter what happens, Najee's going to have a good game here if the Steelers want to dominate this football game and control the clock that Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith really want to do here in Pittsburgh. And I really do think it's going to be important for Najee to get it going, because to this point, man, he has not been very good to start his 2024 campaign. Just 3.4 yards per carry. That's 46th in the NFL. This is the first-round pick that we're talking about here, who has been in the league for multiple years now. It's time for him to get it going. He's in his fourth year in the league. This is the time where running backs are usually exploding and having the best years of their career. And Harris at this point has kind of been devolved to almost just a pure power back. He's not creating any explosion, any splash in the run game. So that's going to have to change this week if the Steelers want to dominate with the run game, which we know they want to do with Arthur Smith at OC. And then the Cowboys right now are allowing 145 rush yards per game. That's 27th in the National Football League. So if the Steelers can't get up to 100 rush yards in this one with Najee Harris, I think there's a little bit of a problem. And I am skeptical that this run offense is going to be able to get it done because they faced at the time the worst rushing defense in the league last week against the Indianapolis Colts without a very key piece on their defensive line in Kwity Paye, and they still didn't have a good performance, man. You look at Najee Harris and how he played in that football game. He had 13 carries for 19 yards against the worst rushing defense in the league. That is unacceptable this week versus the Cowboys. Plain and simply, Najee has to have a bounce-back performance. This run game needs to get it going. And if they don't, I think we're probably talking about Najee Harris not being a Pittsburgh Steeler in future seasons. Now, listen, man, I do think that he has to have that productive day on the ground, or else, 2 weeks in a row against bad rushing defenses and he's still not getting it done. I think it's going to be a tough look on Najee, so this is a big, big game for him to show out in front of a national audience. But it isn't necessarily all on him, all right? With the running game, it's multiple factors, right? And the offensive line is one of those really, really big factors, right? And the offensive line just doesn't have to self-destruct this week, because you look at what the Dallas Cowboys have in terms of a pass rush this week, it is pretty much nothing, all right? Marshawn Nealon, a rookie out of Western Kentucky, is going to be their number one edge rusher this week. Chauncey Golston is going to be their number two, and that's about it. And then, Odigizua is not going to do much for you as an interior pass rusher, and neither will Mozzie Smith. So right now, as long as Broderick Jones, Mason McCormick, all the people on this Steelers offensive line, as long as they don't just shit the bed here against this terrible Dallas defensive front, they're going to be just fine. But, Broderick Jones, as we've seen throughout this season and during the preseason, penalties, all these different things, losing quickly to people he shouldn't be losing to. It's going to be Mason McCormick's first start on the right side this year, so there is still question marks on the Steelers' offensive line. I think they're going to end up being fine just because this Cowboys front seven is so bad at this point, but it is still a little bit of a concern, and there really is no reason why this offensive line can't dominate this unit on Sunday night. If they don't, I'm going to start to get a little bit worried. Then the final key to victory here for the Pittsburgh Steelers is that Fields needs to manage the game. Because if Najee's getting going, if the O-line is doing their job, Fields' job should be relatively easy. Because I think the defense is going to play well. I hope that the run game is going. So Fields just doesn't need to turn the ball over, all right? And he just needs to complete his passes. And that's what he's been doing to this point in his career as a Pittsburgh Steeler. Over 70% completion percentage, just 2 turnovers, and he is getting over 240 total yards per game. So Justin doesn't need to be a world beater. At least I hope he doesn't have to be on Sunday to get the victory. He just needs to be that game manager that he has been when he has won football games in a Steelers uniform. And like I said, guys, all Justin needs to do in this one is not lose it, all right? Like if he doesn't turn the ball over, if he completes his passes, if he hits open receivers when they're there to be hit, this is probably going to be a win for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's going to be Fields' 4th win as a member of this football team. So for me personally, heading into this matchup, I think the Steelers, both offensively and defensively, have the mismatches and the matchup favorability here, and I think that it's not even really all that close. So I'm going to go with the Steelers to win this week, 27-13, win by 2 touchdowns here, flirt with 30 points on the day. I think the Cowboys get 1 touchdown. I think the Steelers get 3. And I think it's overall going to be a very good day and a very fun game to watch if you are a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Now it's your turn. Let me know down there in the comments section. Predict the score of Steelers versus Cowboys for me down there in the comments section. I think 27-13. Let me know what you guys are thinking down there in the comments.